So, first, welcome to our audience for today's show. We're super excited to talk about data migration, and we're going to talk about data migration from a couple of different lenses. And we're going to talk about the IT lens and the business lens, but more importantly, we're going to have three different personas, right? Myself, Adrian Estala, field CDO here at Starburst, Niho, who's a senior director and head of data and AI platform enterprise data governance at Gilead, and of course, Teresa Tung, the cloud first chief technologist over at Accenture. You're going to hear our voices, our perspectives on data migration. We're adding a twist, though. We're all familiar with data migrations, but today we want to talk about data migrations from a data product perspective, and specifically how data products can help either to accelerate or simplify something that we're going to be dealing with for a long time, which is that migration exercise, that data migration. So I'm ready to jump right into it. Hopefully you are. Let's go. I always like to start with just kind of the big executive messages. I think whether you are an executive or maybe you're an IT leader or maybe you're an architect who's having to kind of deliver the message upward, I think it's important to kind of just baseline on why this is important. Baseline on why it would be important to that executive. And I think first and foremost, I think if I start on the left side here, we all need to realize that we're going to be dealing with data migrations for a long time, right? It's for the foreseeable future. You're going to be doing some type of data migration. I don't like to do migrations. I'm very careful about how I do my migrations. We'll talk a lot about that today, but I think at the same time, I think we have to be realistic and say that we're going to be moving data. And so we need a sustainable data migration strategy. We're going to hear a little bit from Gilead about the approach that they took. Now, the data migration projects, they create issues for business teams. And so as hard as we think it is on the IT side, it's much harder on the business side. And oftentimes that disruption is just not acceptable. The ROI isn't immediate or the ROI isn't clear for the business teams. And so when we talk about data migrations on the IT side, we need to find some way to abstract that migration exercise from business continuity. How do we allow the business to continue to run and innovate while we do what we need to do on the back end? And of course, secure, fast, and trusted enterprise data access is an absolute business imperative. And so we're not going to move our businesses forward. We can't be competitive unless we continue to not only allow access to the existing data sets, but that we allow integration to new data sets and continue to do that over a long period of time. There'll always be new data. We will always be integrated. And so the ability to do that securely and rapidly and in a way that our stakeholders trust is really, really important for kind of business strategy. And so we need an agile approach to deliver that. These are the executive messages. I'm going to start first by just defining data migration. And as I said earlier, we're going to talk about the IT lens, and then we're going to try to balance that with the business lens. First and foremost, when we talk about a migration, simple, right? We're talking about moving, in this case, data. There's all kinds of migrations. We're talking about data migrations. We're talking about moving data from a legacy environment into a future environment. Now, it could be on-prem to cloud is a very standard approach, very common approach for migration. Cloud to cloud is now becoming a popular path as well. You move data into one cloud and you decide you need to have that data somewhere else for whatever reason. And another path, which is maybe less popular, but we're starting to see, maybe it's emerging, is cloud back to on-prem. And so there's a lot of different ways or a lot of different pathways, but typically we're talking about moving in data from a legacy environment to a future environment. From an IT perspective, creates a number of challenges. First and foremost, I need to think about how I'm going to move that data. And there are some incredible tools that allow us to do that today. There's open source tools. There's tools that are native to the different cloud providers that we're using. There's a number of great tools that weren't available back when we started doing migrations, or when I started doing migrations back in 2016 into the cloud. We were largely left on our own to do these lift and shifts or big refactoring exercises. But now there's tools that help you do that. Most of our migrations aren't a lift and shift, though. Most of our migrations actually look like transformations. We're taking data from a legacy environment or multiple legacy environments, and we're transforming that data as we move it into its future environment. And so oftentimes we're remodeling that data. We're doing something different with that data. So it's going to look different once it lands. We do that because we want to take advantage of the destination, right? We want to take advantage of the capabilities in the place we're moving to. And so transformation is a very common thing to do. And it's it's a big part of kind of making sure that we realize that bigger ROI. Creates challenges, right? On the IT side, I've got to worry about all my data owners. Will my data owners singularly, one by one, are they going to approve the movement of that data? I worry about cost. How much is it going to cost to move the data? How long is it going to take? If I'm moving cloud to cloud, are there egress costs that I'm worried about? Worried about quality. Am I moving good quality data, or do I have to create a separate project to fix the quality of that data? And who's going to be involved? Is it IT guys fixing data quality, or do I need to involve the business to help me fix the quality? What about accuracy? How do I make sure that the data that I'm moving is lifted and shifted or transformed, but it does not affect the integrity or the accuracy of that data? Am I moving the same thing? Is it landing in the right way? Duplication. When I move the data, what am I doing with the data that's in the legacy environment? How am I getting rid of the data? Am I moving duplicate data? So if I've got duplicate data in my legacy environments, am I creating duplicate data in my future environments? A big pain point for IT teams. Latency. Do I have the network that can handle the movement, especially if I'm thinking about on-prem legacy? Wow, what is the impact on my network? And then compliance. That's the big one. That's the painful one, right? Am I creating an environment in my future state that meets minimum controls? Is it as good or better than where I came from? Any one of these challenges can kill your migration project. And so if you create a plan and you create dependencies and you create a timeline, you make commitments to your business teams and you get started, something goes wrong with quality, something goes wrong with compliance, you find out you've got duplicate data, it can really create a challenge for that plan that you had. And all of a sudden you're having to rethink the timelines, you're having to rethink your commitments. But that isn't the only challenge. The reality is that type of migration is going to continue to happen. You're going to have new legacy environments, i.e., let's move this first, and then we're going to move that one over there next. And then we'll move that one over there. And then we'll move this one over here. And so there seems to be a never-ending funnel of legacy environments that need to be moved to a new environment. And so this data migration activity continues for a long time. So this is a really difficult challenge. It's a significant challenge for IT teams, data migration. Even with all the fancy tools we have, there's a lot of work that we have to do. Now, if we pause and appreciate that it's hard for the IT teams, guarantee you it's even harder for the business teams. On the business side, I have to worry about a lot of the same things. Yeah, I'm worried about costs. What is it going to cost me on the business side? I'm also worried about quality, accuracy, and compliance. So we share a lot of the same challenges. On the business side, I'm also worried about business resources. I've got a limited number of resources, business people that understand the data, that understand the solutions that are being built. How much time are they going to have to commit to this IT-driven data migration? I'm worried about business continuity. Hold on a second. You're moving data. How is that going to affect all the applications and dashboards and AI engines I've already built? How do I keep those running while you move your data? We're going to dig into that here in a second. I'm also worried about project delays. Not only do I want to keep the stuff that I have in production running, I also have a lot of new stuff that I'm building. I've got a backlog of projects, digital transformation projects that are going to transform the business. Am I going to put those on hold? Do they have to wait till your data migration project is done? It's painful. And so let's take a closer look at those business solutions. On the dashboard side, if you're moving data, even whether it's a Power BI dashboard or a Tableau dashboard or whatever you're building, those dashboards that are being used by executives or by business teams to make decisions, they're going to have to point to the new environment. And if you've modeled the data differently in the new environment, now the data looks differently, now the data's in a different place, that's a big change. You're having to do a lot of work in your dashboards. It's the same thing on your advanced analytics. If you're used to feeding an AI engine, or if you're used to feeding an advanced analytics program a certain way, that's going to change. That pipeline is going to change. The data is going to change. Where it comes from is going to change. And same thing for applications. Maybe even more painful for applications that have really, really hard dependencies on the way data is built. They expect to see data a certain way. They expect data to flow at a certain time. And when you move data on the back end, it's devastating for some application teams. They may have to rewrite the way that data gets pulled across. And of course, oftentimes we're sharing data with third parties. And again, just like everything else that we've discussed, they are used to seeing data appear a certain way. They're used to a schema. Frankly, they don't care where the data comes from as long as it comes in the same format they're used to. And when you move that data, you're changing that format. Remember I talked about that transformation? When you transform that data and you move it, now you've created pain, because everything that you've got to do on your side, I guarantee you on the IT side, it pales in comparison to the pain the business teams are going to have to do to make these work, and the continuity and the kind of business disruption that you're creating. And so the business lens, in my perspective, and believe me, as a CDO who's had to sit in front of business teams and present a business case for migration, it's hard to do, right? You're not going to get a hug walking out of that meeting. You're often likely to get a kick walking out of the session because it doesn't always make sense for the business. Where is my immediate ROI? And so when we talk about this sustainable approach, when we talk about creating a sustainable data migration strategy, and you'll hear a lot more about that today here from Gilead, and you'll hear a lot more about that from Accenture in our fireside chat. I want you to first kind of focus in on this concept of an abstraction layer. We need to find a way to abstract all that complexity on the back end from what the business teams are doing on the front end. Now, a lot of different ways to frame that, and I apologize, it looks really small now that I look at it on the screen, but across the top there it says data mesh or data fabric or a semantic layer, right? You pick the marketing term you want to, but any one of those terms, any one of those frameworks, they all point to the same concept, and that's the concept of simplifying business access to data, creating some kind of an abstraction layer. The idea here is that my dashboards, my applications, my analytics teams in the front end, they should not care, or they should not be affected by where my data sits on the back end, right? They don't worry about where data is being moved. They don't care. They're really focused on the abstraction layer where they get their data. They're focused on that platform where they can trust that their data is put together in the right way. And so whatever I want to do in the back end, from an IT perspective, if I want to move my data fast, I can do it without disrupting the business. If I start to move a data set and I realize, I've got a compliance issue, I can't move that data set, I can very quickly in an agile way shift and focus on a different data set. I don't have to move everything all at once. The reason I don't is because my business teams have the same level of connectivity to my legacy environment as they do to my future environment. What makes this happen is that data product. If you can imagine a data product resembling that legacy data schema. And so I've got dashboards. They're used to seeing schemas a certain way. When they connect to a data product, that schema should look exactly the same as to what they're used to. Same thing for every other solution there. Analytic solutions, application solutions, third parties. That data product resembles the schema they're used to seeing. On the back end, I can move that data wherever I need to from an IT perspective, at whatever speed I want to from an IT perspective, without impacting that, because that data product is always going to look the same for the business team. All that business team had to do was just point to the data product, but they didn't have to change the way their dashboards work, and the schema looks exactly the same. If they want to make changes to that data product in the future, absolutely, they can with agility. But again, it's really up to them. And now they're making changes to drive business solutions as opposed to being forced to change for IT solutions. That flexibility is incredible. And of course, we expect that we're going to have continued commitment to other kinds of migrations. We're going to be moving legacy to future for a long time, whether that's cloud to cloud, or whether that's on-prem to cloud, or whether that's cloud to on-prem. There's always going to be movement from something to something else. As much as I don't like to suggest or impose migrations, the reality is they're going to happen. And so where you can try to apply an approach like this so that you can make smart decisions on the back end without affecting the business, I think it's a game changer for the way you do business. And the reality is there will be new futures. And so whatever you think is a future state today might be legacy tomorrow. And so again, we have to be able to plan, we need to be ready. We need a strategy that's going to allow us to move data succinctly with the right priority, without impacting the business teams. And that data product layer is really the way to do that, because you can make that data product look in the way that the business teams want to see it. You can create a data product that the business teams understand. I suspect everyone in the audience knows a bit about data products, but in case you don't, that data product isn't just a raw integrated set of tables. No, that data product, it may include a field from this system and a field from that system and a table from a different system. That data product might include data from both legacy environments and future environments. But most importantly, that data product has rich metadata. So when a business team picks up that data product, they know what it is. They know where it came from. They know how to use it, right? There's a strong description. And that data product is secure by design. It is secured based on the risk profile assigned to each data product. So all of a sudden, we've got the right level of security, we've improved access, and we've allowed the business teams to run with much greater agility. Fantastic. Now, I can't wait for you to jump into your story, and I hope it aligns with what I said, but feel free, Nito, to throw rocks at any pieces of my story if you think differently or if you have a different opinion.
All right. Thank you, Adrian. I try not to. I try to be aligned with you.
All right.
So, good morning, good afternoon, and just in case we have some folks from AP as well, good evening, everyone. So I am proud to represent Gilead as the head of data and AI platform and enterprise data governance. Now, a bit about Gilead Sciences. We are a 35 years old research-based biopharmaceutical company with a mission to discover, develop, and deliver innovative therapies for people with life-threatening diseases. We focus a lot on researching and developing antiviral drugs, treatment for HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, influenza, and COVID-19. Now, we also have significant focus on and is a leader in oncology treatment via cell therapy. So Gilead, we are a multinational company with more than 17,000 employees that share one single purpose: to create a healthier world for all people. So that is, why we exist. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please, Adrian. Now, before I talk a bit about our data migration journey, I want to share a bit more on our long-term ambition. Now, we have long-term ambition to, number one, bring 10 plus transformative therapy to patients by the years of 2030. Number two, we want to be the biotech employer and partner of choice. And number three, we want to deliver shareholder value in a sustainable and responsible manner. Now, at Gilead, our vision is to elevate a data-driven culture. You may have heard that a lot, and drive new revenue by treating data and analytics as an asset across the enterprise. To execute on that vision, we set out to deliver and democratize access to trusted data and analytics with speed and efficiency. That allows business to innovate and achieve differentiated performance. Now, we build the enterprise data and AI platform to support our vision, to empower a data-driven culture and scale innovation across Gilead Life business. Let's go to the next slide, please, Adrian.
One second. There we go. Sorry about that, Annie.
Sure. Now, at Gilead, we firmly believe that the biopharmaceutical industry and our company is being disrupted. The last outbreak of COVID-19 once again confirmed our strategy to focus on data science and cloud innovations to advance our pursuit of innovative medicine for patients. We recognize that speed is key and sustainable scaling is inevitable. And data science and cloud innovation is really going to be key to continuing our pursuit of innovative medicine for all the people. Now, why did we embark upon this data migration journey to the cloud? 4 drivers. Number one, we want greater agility. Legacy applications often cause obstacle and delay that negatively impact responsiveness. We want to move faster and support our stakeholder, like the data science community, to innovate faster, discover drug faster, and bring them to the market faster with higher efficacy. Second, we also wanted to scale sustainably. we identified that our disaster recovery data center wasn't fully scaled to meet the need of a fully failover of a disaster. So we make a decision to accelerate our migration of our data center to the cloud so that we can make full use of cloud-based disaster recovery services instead of upscaling our data center. Now, on the data front, we saw exponential growth of data filled with inconsistencies, potential biases, and noises. Now, we observed that we have a lot of intensified data integration across domain, and higher the cost data off. We need to have a distributed architecture to scale our data management infrastructure, and cloud is an inevitable answer. Number 3, we want to increase on our operational efficiency. Our legacy system and technology, as we all know, are expensive to operate and maintain. By moving to the cloud, we save costs on both hardware and labor. Now, last but not least, we wanted to break down legacy data silo. We want to turn data assets into data products and to enable business domain to gain cross-company visibility via data sharing and work better together. We want to provide data access to everyone in the organization, and we want to empower everyone to access data and use data for informed decision-making without requiring technical expertise or IT intervention. And that's what it means by data democratization, right? And cloud migration makes this whole process a lot easier. Next slide. So I was told before the presentation that we have a highly technical audience. So I do hope that we appreciate this slide. I know it has a lot of details, but I'm going to try to net it out real quick. Okay. Now, we build
it is a great looking slide, Nia. I love it.
Yeah, I know it looked good, but I want it, to be good as well. So now, to support the whole data migration to the cloud via data product, we set out to build an enterprise data and AI platform. Okay, the main goal of the data and AI platform is to make it easy and reduce the total cost of ownership to build data products and to lower the entry barrier for data product, also known as node in the mesh architecture, to participate in the mesh. Okay. Now, when we started with our journey, we took a very tech-first approach rather than an end-user experience lead approach. And we started out with too much of focus on infrastructure rather than persona-level user experience. And that led to architectural changes and refactoring and cataloging of data product after the build. Now, as we realized it was not an effective approach, we course-corrected and structured the platform into 3 planes that focus on 3 different experiences. Now, at the bottom of the diagram, you're looking at the self-service infrastructure plan. And the experience that it focuses on delivering is services that allow for automated provisioning of data and AI development environment that include end-to-end storage and compute services, while together would require access to the data product, because you need data product to be another data product and AI ML product, right? Now, the data product experience plan, that's what you see on the left-hand side. We focus on building services that enable the live business to autonomously build and serve data product. These services include a self-service data AI ML space provisioning portal, accompanied with data ML development starter kit for different type of data ingestion transformation pattern. Last but not least, the mesh experience plan, and perhaps this is the most important plan on the whole data mesh architecture, because it brings everything together, right? The mesh experience plan, it includes services that bring all data product on the mesh together and enable new data product registration on the mesh itself. These are the data product catalog that support data discovery and end-to-end data access grant workflow. We have the data product observability component that support data profiling, classification, and quality. We also create a suite of self-serve data product publishing API to lower the entry barrier to the mesh for new data products. And once the data source is registered, all the physical data assets under the data source will be automatically scanned, profiled, and classified in the data catalog. Now, what happened after data consumer have requested and been granted access to the data? This is where Starburst come into the picture as a delivery target for data stored across different database technologies, such as SAP, HANA, Redshift, S3, and also Oracle database. Starburst, as most of us know, right, it does enable a federated semantic layer and distributed query engine as a global access layer with fine-grained access control. And this allows Gilead employees to access data quickly and easily, no matter where it lives, right? So 3 takeaways, from this whole business. Like, number 1, as we started building the platform, we really should focus on experience-led design instead of infrastructure and technologies, right? We need to focus on the stakeholder, the people who would use our platform. And that does include data developer, AI ML developer, data scientist, data analyst, business analyst, right? Instead of focusing on the infrastructure. Now, second, after that, we want to adopt technology that support open standards and support open integration, because we do not want to get into a vendor lock-in problem. That's why, as you look at this diagram, you see a combination of several technologies wired together. Our job, in Gilead, is to build integration across different tools, different technologies. Whatever we can buy, we buy, and we don't want to build, right? Because build comes with a maintenance cost. Starburst, obviously, it fit very well, into this category, because it is one of those technologies that support open standards and enable seamless integration with governance tools such as data catalog, Linux products, and also data security platform. Now, the last point is, once we have adopted all of the open technologies, we really want to focus on integrating multiple technology components together to create a unified experience to drive adoption of our data and AI platform, and would in turn drive the adoption of the whole data mesh across the company. Okay, next slide.
There we go.
All right, thank you, Adrian. So just a little bit on, where we are today with regard to our success metrics, right? These are just some of the nominal metrics that we have defined and collected to measure our success, right? We started this journey, I would say, since the beginning of last year. And it's been, I would say, almost 2 years of a journey. And we have achieved, significant success to the point where it helped us to confirm that we're on the right path, to improve on the maturity of data democratization across the company, right? What you're looking at is the number as of today, but this number is gonna keep going up, as we move to the future. As an example, as of today, we have around 500 plus data product across 9 line of business. In the company, we have around 11 or 12 line of business in the company, right? So 9 of them are onboarded with the platform, are onboarded with the data mesh. So 900 data product, which I used to build several BI dashboard and also AI, ML solutions. Our target is by the end of the year, we're gonna get to around close to 1,000 data product, and that is, an achievable target as per our working with several business to onboard that data product onto the enterprise data catalog. Okay, next slide. So what is the future with data product? I spent time talking about, data migration, right? And I spent time talking about data product. So what's the future? Now, at Gilead, at this point in time, we double down on treating data products as first-class citizen. And what that means is data is created and published for discovery as data product, not data asset, not table, not view, but data product, right? And a data product, by definition, is a logical grouping of related data assets and associated metadata to serve very specific user need, right? Data products are what matter. The data is then requested as part of a data product, and access is granted, as a data product level as well. And data is also served as a data product to strategic delivery target. Now, this way, data is treated as a strategic asset and is critical to the organization's success and help drive a data-driven decision-making culture. Again, Starburst, it does support our strategy very well by supporting the creation of view of the data across all the data sources, and that's what you see on this box. And also with Starburst, we can securely share data product across team and department with its building access control. And that's why we decided to choose Starburst as one of our strategic delivery target, for data product that need to be served via JDBC protocol, right? Now, so there are two areas that we would continue focusing on. Number one, scaling, okay? We want to expand the shopping experience for data consumer in the company by continuing to onboard more and more data products onto the enterprise data catalog. And the way to do that is to make it as easy as possible for data products to participate into the mesh. Because if we follow the data mesh principle, the domain, they own the data product. They choose to publish data product onto the mesh. And if we make it easy for them, if we lower the entry barrier for them, we can have more and more, data product participate in the mesh, right? But to go above and beyond that, we're working on extending the definition of data product to include dashboard and reports as well, right? So we can have a catalog where we have data products. We have, for lack of a better word, BI products, and we will also have AI products, as part of our enterprise data catalog. And all of these assets, right, all of these products, we call the inside product, they all wire together and in a way related with each other, right? The second thing that we want to focus on is on the maturity. Now, we have a lot of data products as of today on our enterprise data catalog going through the platform. However, right, the journey doesn't end there, okay? So if we think about a true definition of data product, it needs to have 6 characteristics, right? Not all of the data product that we have today on the enterprise data catalog, it fulfill all of those characteristics of data product. We create, 5 level of certification for a data product as it get on the platform. To improve on all of those dimensions, we continue working on the feedback loop to mature the ease of use, of our enterprise data catalog, and also to improve on the quality of our data products. Okay. Now that should be the conclusion of my presentation today. So back to you, Adrian.
Love it, love it. I'm gonna pop in a couple questions if that's okay. And I'm gonna let's start with this slide. I think I'm really excited. I want to go backwards in the slides, and so we'll cover this one, then the previous one, the previous one. I got one question for each. So on this one, and I love the focus on the consumer. I love the experience, making sure that their experience is positive. One of the things that I've noticed when teams start to adopt data products, especially from a BI perspective, their BI tools, whether it's Tableau or Power BI, whatever tool they're using, is that when they start allowing the data product to do more of the transformation, i.e. instead of having the BI tool do all the transformation, you're creating that once and then reusing it via data product. It's the speed, I think, that the user sees when they click on a dashboard and it's faster. That's something that I've noticed, right? It's kind of an added benefit. Not only am I making it easier for you to access data, but it actually runs much quicker. Have you seen that from a BI perspective, BI tool perspective? Are your BI tools running faster, more efficiently on data products?
The quick answer is yes, right? The quick answer is yes. Now,
I asked that question because someone asked that question in the chat. That's why I popped it in there. So,
right. So the quick answer is yes, right? As I share just now on the success metric, the whole adoption of data products for BI and even AI in the company has been great. Okay, we've seen more than 500 true data product created across 9 line of business in Gilead, right? And the true definition of data product is, it has to serve a very specific business purpose, right? So we don't create data product, just for that to sit there doing nothing, right? Yeah. That's not the true definition of data product, okay? Because in order to have a product, you got to have a consumer, okay? And then again, we anticipate the number of data product to reach close to 1,000 by the end of the year, right? However, okay, I want to call out one fact, okay? The road to data product adoption is not all rosy. Okay, sometimes data consumer, they want a quick and dirty way to get access to data. And just a few days ago, I observe, a request to gain direct access to an S3 bucket by a data consumer as a response to their immediate need on the BI side. Okay, they want to have access to an S3 bucket right away. Okay, now, while this is technically feasible, we all know that it's not a scalable approach because it does compromise our commitment to provide high quality data in a secure and auditable manner to users. So we had to educate the consumer to go through the proper channel to request for a data product to be built and to be served. But here is where the platform maturity and the governance maturity need to kick in, right? It takes more than a few days for that data product to be created versus giving them access to S3 directly. The data consumer that would question, our data product definition and concept and approach. And because of that, and then thanks to the maturity of our self-serve data platform and our governance framework, which we did not really have, 2 years ago, right? We were able to enable the domain team to quickly turn that data access into the data product and serve the customer's need. Okay, and that make them happy. So this will be a journey, guys, and it's a very exciting one, right? It's a very exciting one because we're doing the right thing and we're pushing hard for the right thing.
It's a powerful example because it highlights its speed is important, right? We often think about, I've had I forget who said this, so I can't quote the name, but I remember we were talking about the speed of a query, and they said, I don't care about the speed of the query. I care about the speed of delivery. Business teams ask for something. If I can, in this case, they wanted access to raw data in S3 because they wanted it fast. They were trying to skip the data product piece, and we had built, as you said, all of our controls and governance processes into the data product. But if you can build that data product the same day, or I love your self-service. I think your self-service infrastructure plane and the way that you talk about it, I think that's what jumps off the page in Gilead's approach. But if you can give them the self-service tools and the skills to kind of go out there and discover their own data and build their own data product and then deliver it for themselves, they're off to the races, right? They're running. And I think that's obviously not everybody gets there overnight. There's some teams that may take a bit longer, but I think that's what we're all striving for. From an adoption perspective, one of the things reason why I like data migration as an excellent use case for kicking off a data product journey. When we do data product pathfinders, I love to use data migration use cases because to me, it helps us to accelerate adoption. If I can get teams to start using data products as part of a migration, then they start to realize, as we just described, how useful they are. But more importantly, they can start to think of other ways to use them. So I think that data migration is an excellent way to get started. And if you're thinking about a data product project or a new data product program, this is a great way to get started. Do you think that data products as a theme inside of Gilead were accelerated because of the way that you use them in a migration?
Yeah. So let me answer the question this way, right? So while there is overlapping in the drivers for data migration, right, and data mesh implementation, in which case data product is a first-class citizen, we all know that they are not exactly the same set of drivers, okay? Regardless of what, our ultimate goal is to serve the business and achieve operational efficiency, okay? It is very true that, by leveraging data product, we would have a close to perfect, data migration path onto the cloud, because it's not just about lifting and shifting. It's about, moving from, one place to another, on-prem to cloud as an example, and then create a purpose out of that, okay? However, it has to be clear to all of us that data migration and data mesh implementation with data product are just two means to get there, and they support each other. Now, data migration, my point of view, could happen without building data product. And we actually did that for several domains in Gilead, right? Building the data product and an architecture to support that requires incremental step. And this is where, Adrian, you and I, we kind of align in the last, Gartner talk that we did together. Yeah. It has to be an incremental step, right? Now, for some key domain that can reap the immediate benefit of cloud migration, we started with, in Gilead, right, re-architecting the data solution to rebuild and migrate all data assets to the cloud with focus on serving very specific business needs. So in a way, we build data product, however, these were not true data product because they lack several important characteristics, of data product, right? So we accepted the imperfection as technical debt. so that we can serve the business. And we have a plan to retrofit later to turn these data product, right, these imperfect data product into true data product as our platform and governance became more mature. Okay, so that is the answer to your question.
Love it. Love it. I want to keep going. But I want to bring Teresa in. So thank you. Let's do that. Let's invite Teresa into the conversation.
Sure.
We'll pause. She's backstage and she comes on stage, and I want to talk to Teresa about her view on modernization. And specifically, I've heard her talk in a couple of different venues about 3 different types of modernization. And so let's give her a second to join. Maybe while we're waiting for Teresa to come on from backstage, I'll pop one more question in your direction. The going back to the self-service plane, how do you? Hey, Teresa's here. Let me finish the question, because when you staff these teams that were building data products, did you give them a data engineer from the IT team to help them? How did that work? Did they get their own, focus product domain with their own engineer to go build data products? Or did that team actually take it upon themselves, that business team, for example, and that they have their own engineer, so to speak? How did you staff them?
Yeah, they cannot do that on their own, right? From a technical standpoint, they can, right? But from doing that the way that we want the whole organization to rally behind the whole concept data mesh implementation to build data product, business cannot do that for themselves. They cannot do that for themselves because they don't have the ability to. They do, however, their incentive is not there. Okay, the incentive is to support that very specific silo need from the business. Our job is to help them see, an enterprise picture. And because of that, the way that we, make it work is we come up with the concept of co-creation, okay, where obviously data engineers, really come from the lab business. We don't want to become the bottleneck for the organization, right? But we do inject our engineers into the domain team as well, working hand in hand with the engineer, mold them into doing it the right way, mold them into adopting the platform capability so that they can build that they put up. And by doing this, we avoid duplication in investment in building out a reusable, ETL pipeline so that we can build it to put up and register that data put up onto the enterprise data catalog. So co-creation is a way to go.
Yeah, it drives consistency, and it also allows you to get really, really good at building it. Maybe that's down the road, right? Maybe down the road, some of those business teams will take on they won't see it as a burden. They'll see it as a cool capability. Teresa, welcome to the stage. I think you've got there you go. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you heard that exciting discussion that Nee gave us on the Gilead approach. I've heard you in I always enjoy every time I see your name pop up on LinkedIn. I'm like, I got to listen. And so I've heard you talk in a couple of different venues about these modernization exercises. And I think there's a couple different lenses you talk about. Let's start with that. Maybe we can just kind of open up your views on modernization and what different types of modernization approaches exist.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian, and great job, Nee. I really look at it in 3 categories, right? There's certainly modernization of a lot of the on-premise systems that we have today, right? We've made investments. There's a lot of data in it. It's still being used. And if you snap your fingers, it's not going to go away, right? So things like you may have HDFS systems, Netezza, Teradata, Oracle. There's just a lot of things that are on-prem, and some just might stay on-prem. And so having a means to modernize and start creating data products right in those systems, I think that's step 1. And then step 2, we talk about, this sort of mesh, right? This hybrid multi-cloud. If things go on cloud, now you have this means to, again, because you have that facade using Starburst on top, it's really easy to do that underneath. And then I guess the final one is everybody, I don't think you can have a webcast without talking about Gen AI. I don't know if you said the word yet, but it's really exciting. Our CEOs are paying attention, right? The business is paying attention. So we should lean into that. If they ever want to do Gen AI with using their data about your products, right? Your processes, your people, you need data for that. Gen AI, and if you use these managed models, they shouldn't have information about that. So that's the third one. So these are the three sort of categories when I think about modernization.
Love it, love it. And that AI, let's start with that example, because I think you're right. I think, sitting and talking to a lot of different customers and companies, I think when you sit in front of an executive board and they're saying, what are we doing in the AI space? What are our competitors doing in the AI space? And you start talking about the projects and the costs and the benefits. The last thing they want to hear is, hold on, give me 2 years to migrate the data. They want results, right? They want results in 3 months. Hey, AI is fast. I can go to ChatGPT and get an answer in 3 seconds. You're telling me it's going to take me 3 years to get data ready? It's not going to work. And so your first example there of modernizing in place, saying, can I access the data where it sits today using, and I hate to use the word legacy because these are great architectures that we have. Legacy makes them sound old and ineffective. Using our in-place architectures and start driving data from them immediately, I think it's powerful. And me kind of coming to you for a second, let me see if you saw this. What I often see when we start migration exercises is once you start creating that data product layer, the abstraction layer, and you start to see how it works, and you start to see that I can actually leverage that existing lake pretty well. I can start to use the data where it sits today. Maybe I don't need to migrate it. Maybe I can leave it where it is. Did you see some of that in your migration where you maybe shifted your strategy a bit, where you said, I don't need to move it yet because I can federate to it just fine?
Yeah, the key word here that you said here is yet, right? We don't need to move that yet, because eventually people from the business, they don't really care where the data sits, right? It's on-prem, on the cloud, doesn't matter. What matter is we give the data that has a purpose to them with the right metadata so that, they can use that to build, to derive insight, okay? So, and in this case, right, again, with the support of Starburst itself, it helps us defer that migration, until later, where it makes sense, where we deliver value right away, to the business. And then while we're working on a path, to migrate data to the cloud later on. I mean, data migration to the cloud in most scenario, right, is essential, but that to me, right, shouldn't be the whole blocker for business, to derive value from the data. And Starburst does provide that layer to help with that.
And that points to your second example, Teresa. I think you called it selective modernization or selective migration and hybrid modernization, where you're living in this hybrid world for some time. What advice do you give to companies when they're trying to be selective about what data sets to migrate? How do you make good decisions there?
I think one thing is that everybody's in a hybrid world, because we don't, as organizations, even if you as an organization are going to stay on-prem, to get the data we need to get insights, we have to work with our partners in the ecosystem. So like it or not, we are a hybrid world, right? That I guess that's phase one. But then, if we think about this, what do you move, right? So there's a lot of cost reasons that you might stay on premise, and there's a lot of cost reasons why you might go to cloud, right? There's also security and sovereignty and other reasons that we need to take care of. But as we start with that phase one, with that adding the facade, right, on top of your existing current systems, you really now have a means to really monitor and use a data-driven approach to say what's being used, right? What are these data products? Who's using it? And then you use that as a data-driven decision to figure out, what do I move to cloud? Some things will make more sense to stay on premise, right? We're not going to have certain secure, IP specific, maybe things that have a lot of cost to do that ingress and egress into the cloud. Keep that on-prem, right? Certain other things makes a lot of sense in the cloud. So really thinking about that, I think, again, having that step one facade makes it so easy to change.
Beautiful. Yeah. In that selective migration, kind of another challenge that I myself have kind of lived through is making the smart or the right decision on what to move to, right? So it's hard enough to figure out, to be selective in terms of what I'm moving, but then trying to make a sustainable decision. I'm going to move to that warehouse and I hope I can use it over a long term, or I'm going to move to that lake, and so these are tricky decisions, trying to decide where I'm going to get the biggest bang for my buck, but where am I going to be able to support the most use cases? Because if I move to this environment and I spend a lot of money and I feel stuck in that environment, and it's going to be expensive for me to maintain all my use cases, then I'm limited. one of the concepts or one of the things that I see more and more, one of the themes is people really leveraging lake architectures, especially now with the kind of the emergence of Iceberg and the ability to do a lot of that kind of virtual warehousing, so to speak, in a standard lake. How, and then let me come back to you there for that question. When you guys were making decisions on where to migrate, how did you guys make that decision on what to go to, right? Am I going to lakes? Am I going to warehouses? Am I going somewhere else? Was that a enterprise decision, or did you allow each LOB to kind of drive that?
We provide recommendation, but in a way, we allow the live business to do that, okay? Because we don't want to pretend to understand all the challenges and the full business context of all of the live business within Gilead. And I just said we had 11 live business, in Gilead, right? And all would have their own data lake, okay? So the one recommendation, right, that we do have for the live business is leverage AWS as the cloud, okay, as we move the data too. But on AWS itself, we do have several, I would say, data platform, data lake, data warehouse that people can pick and choose depending on their need, okay? And just migrate, at their own pace where it makes the most sense to them, right? But this is exactly the main reason that we decided to adopt the data mesh architecture, where essentially we decentralize, the technologies, right? What matters the most is whether this data lake, that data platform, this data warehouse can plug into the mesh to be part of the mesh or not, so that the whole organization can work together. The underlying technology where the data is stored doesn't really matter. And that's also called for the need of a federated query engine over here, where people would need to have the ability to query for data from across different, technology, even on the cloud and on-prem, right? Without moving the data, because we all know that as you move the data, you reduce the trust in the data. And not to mention that it's gonna incur costs, right, for data ingestion. Okay, so that is, the way that we do that in Gilead.
Love it. Anything to add, Teresa?
No, I think Nii got it very right. That's exactly what the role of the mesh is. And eventually in the future, there's going to be yet new data architectures. I'm sure there's new things coming out, right? So we always want to optimize for cost, for performance, sustainability, and each line of business to have that flexibility to pick whether it's the current systems or whatever next gen is coming out.
Yeah, I love it. Let me say that cover a couple of themes as we close up. I think one of the themes, certainly come back to your point just now, Teresa, is that agility, right? The absolute, I would say, importance, requirement, it's an imperative that we enable our business teams to be agile, right? And so going back to your point on self-service, Nii, where we can create a self-service infrastructure, there was something you had in your slides that I wanted to mention, and I just remember now, there was this quote in there around allowing your teams to bring their own infrastructure. I've never seen that. I love it, right? It's saying, look, I don't care where your data sits today, we're going to make it work, right? Modernize in place, access data where it sits. And so that self-service plane, I want to underscore that you bring your own infrastructure, because that's the definition of agility. I'm not going to force you to change. Let's try to leverage what you have. I think the other theme here obviously underscores the conversation is data products. And we've talked a lot about how we use them, but going back to, I think what we've all been talking about, what makes data products so valuable on the front end is that they should be very easy to consume. They should be very easy to understand. They should be very easy for a business team to pick up. And I think if we design them correctly and use them correctly, they should accelerate the way the solutions work, whether it's a dashboard or an application, or whether I'm feeding an AI engine for generative AI. Every one of those use cases can benefit from the use of data products. And on the back end, if my teams are using these virtual data products or these data product models, I can do what I want. And on the IT side, all the pain and change that I know I'm going to have to go through for the next 5 years, suddenly it feels manageable, because I don't have to worry about disrupting the business at every corner. It doesn't mean I can do it seamlessly, but it means I can massively reduce that migration pain for my business teams. And so thank you so much. Hopefully I've covered the pain points. I'll just going to give each one of you an opportunity for any closing thoughts. Teresa, you're first.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, Accenture, one of the things that we're working with Starburst is on a way to make it really easy for that step one, that modernize in place, and then into that migration. So we're both really key partners with Dell. And Dell has a means that allows us to take what Starburst has deployed and just make it much, much faster. It's just much more performant. And so if, you're thinking about, this modernization in place, and then all the way into things like generative AI, especially, again, if that generative AI is working on your models, that might even be a custom model that stays on premise. That is one story that we are telling jointly together.
Love it. Great example. I've seen some of those use cases, and they are eye-opening. I think people are really rethinking how on-prem works because of what Dell's doing. Fantastic. Nee, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Well, I represent IT, right? And IT
And you do it well, Nee, and you do it well.
I hope so. So I represent IT, and we represent IT. And then IT, in most non-IT company may be perceived as, getting in the way for the business to achieve their business outcome and move fast, because we try to standardize on how certain things need to be done. Okay, that is the perception. And to me, a lot of time that is a misperception. Now to remove that whole perception, the two key areas that we really, really focus on is, number one, while we let the business, have the freedom to go and choose the technology that they see fit to deliver the business value, right? We aim to build what I call a self-service, AI ML platform, okay? And make it so super easy to use, so that the business themselves, as they look at that platform, they make their own decision to abandon the technology that they think, is helpful to them, and adopt the standardized technology that we decide to pick for the organization. Okay, that's number one, right? And that, in a way, kind of answer what the question, on the screen. What is the impact of decentralization to technology as you see fit on the cost, right? Well, the impact of that is the following, right? The business themselves, eventually they got to pay for a technology that they choose, right? If they come to realize that, hey, by adopting the self-serve AI/ML platform that we have, going to make their operational costs a lot cheaper, they're going to jump, right? And they will jump, because, to manage a data and AI platform is not just a matter of purchasing something and just use it. It has to do with maintaining that, operating that as well, and make that, user-friendly and customized for the experience of the company as well, right? So that's number one. Build a really good self-service data and AI platform so that people would come and use that. Number two, we need to have a very, strong governance framework, so that, different line of business, even though they are given the autonomy to build the data product, they can work well together, so that everything is interoperable across the company. Otherwise, by adopting a data mesh without a strong governance, we're going to easily run into the silo problem. And that is, the root cause of all the issues that we don't want to get to. Okay, those are the two takeaways.
Awesome. There's some great questions, and I wish I had enough time to answer them all. I just responded to one that I saw there around whether you're maintaining two different data products, one for legacy and one for product. I'll just answer that real quick in closing, because I think it's a great question. No, I think primarily, I think what you want to do is create one data product that's federated, if you will, between your legacy environments and your future environments. And so that data product for your consumer always looks the same. On the back end, it might be pulling tables from legacy and other tables or fields or rows or columns from future, but it looks the same for your consumer. It's one data product. I will also say, though, I've seen other use cases when we're doing migrations where it does make sense to create one data product just for legacy and to create a different one for the future. But those are different use cases. And so I think you have the optionality to decide what works best for you. Simplicity would say create one and then just manage a change so you don't have any impact on the consumer. But again, you can decide to do it whatever way makes the most sense for your consumer. Nee, thank you so much. Teresa, thank you so much. I'm going to pause and I'm going to listen to the show all over again, because there was so much good, I think, great content in here that I can't wait to take some notes. So appreciate the audience, appreciate yourselves. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys. It was my pleasure.
Bye, guys.
Sure.